on energy security in India, a new opportunity and sustainability. We are going to start today's program with national anthem. May I request everyone, please stand for the national anthem. Professor Dr. President of Board of Governor, IISWBM, Sri D.K. Sanyal, Treasurer, the Board of Trustee, IISWBM, Sri Suvi Chakrabarti, Past President, Bengal Chamber, former MD and CEO, Excite India, His Excellency Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General of the International Solar Alliance, Professor Dr. K. Agrawal, Acting Director of IISWBM, to formally inaugurate this program by lighting the ceremonial lamp. Volunteers may please help. The esteemed panelists, other members, so please all of you are requested to kindly join as well. Panelist members who are present here, please join. Thank you all. Today we gather here to honor the memory of the remarkable late Professor Professor D.K. Sanyal, a visionary, a leader, the founder director of IISWBM. We honor not only his enduring legacy, but also the value he maintained, a fixed commitment towards progress and pioneering contribution to management education. His contribution serves as a profound source of inspiration for all of us who strive to follow in his footsteps. This lecture series was established to celebrate his extraordinary legacy. It serves as a platform to carry forward his ethos. We are privileged to bring together world-renowned thought leaders, visionaries, and scholars to honor his memory and spark dialogues the issue that resonate with the life's work. Today's lecture is no exception, as we are honored to welcome His Excellency Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General of the International Solar Alliance, a pioneer in advancing global solar initiative, to D.K. Sanyal Memorial Lecture. Now, may I now request Professor Dr. Sujit Kumar Basu, President of the Board of Governors, IISWBM, to kindly conduct the felicitation of Dr. Ajay Mathur. Volunteer, please. May I now request Professor Dr. K. Agarwal, Acting Director of IISWBM, to kindly carry out the felicitation of Professor Dr. Sujit Kumar Basu. Once again, I request Professor Dr. K. Agarwal to conduct the felicitation of Sri D.K. Sanyal, Treasurer of the Board of Trustees, IISWBM. Now I request again Professor Dr. K. Agarwal to kindly felicitate Sri Subi Chakravarti, past President, Bengal Chamber, and former MD and CEO, Exide. Thank you, sir. We'll now commence today's program with a welcome address by Professor Dr. Sujit Kumar Basu, President of Board of Governors, IISWBM. Sir, please.
His Excellency Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General, International Solar Alliance, our panelists, Mr. Debashish Sen, IIS Founder Director and CEO, Consulting, Sri Rajesh Singh, MD Generation CSC Limited, Sri Pramod Singh, Chief Business Officer, Indian Power, Sri Deep Chandra Bhatt, ED MBA Racing, ONGC Limited, other distinguished guests, Professor D.K. Sanyal, Treasurer, Board of Trustees, and Member, Board of Governors, IISWBM, other members of BOG and BOT, IISWBM, Professor Dr. K. Agarwal, Director, IISWBM, faculty members, and others of IISWBM. Good afternoon and welcome, and warm welcome to all of you at the D.K. Sanyal Memorial Lecture on energy security in India, new opportunities in sustainability, followed by a panel discussion on mission net zero rhetoric or reality being organized by IISWBM. It is my privilege to share a few words about the heritage of our institute, IISWBM. The precious journey of the institute commenced on April 25, 1953, when it was formed by a resolution of the Syndicate of the University of Calcutta, when the Department of Social Welfare of the university was converted into an autonomous institution, that is IISWBM, to cater to the needs of industry as well as of the society for imparting management and social welfare education. This was culmination of concerted efforts by the University of Calcutta, Government of West Bengal, Government of India, and the captains of industry of the time to set up for the first time a management education institute in India, a concept alien to many of the educational fraternities at that time. Foundation stone was laid by the then Honorable Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, and a coexistence, rather a marriage occurred between business management and social welfare under the leadership of legendary visionaries. The Honorable Chief Minister, Dr. B.C. Roy, and our Honorable Founder Director, Professor D.K. Sanyal. Postal Department of the Government of India released a commemorative postal stamp in the name of IISWBM to celebrate its 50th year of memorable service to the nation. Energy management plays a pivotal role in promoting sustainability by reducing carbon footprints and minimizing wastage resource. India's energy security is tied to energy transition and focuses on adopting clean energy while continuing to use oil and gas for growth. The primary objective of today's memorial lecture is to spread awareness on improving energy security, improving access to energy, and mitigating climate change. I am proud to inform you that the organizing of this memorial lecture has become another milestone achievement. It is a moment of great pleasure for all of us to be a part of the Institute's 71 years journey and take it forward in the years to come. I am confident that this memorial lecture program will contribute considerably to the inclusive growth and admissible and sustainable development of the country in line with the goal to attain net zero by 2070. On behalf of all of us, I once again welcome all of you and thank you for being with us this afternoon. With this, I wish a grand success to this event. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for briefing the journey of IISWBM to the esteemed audience. Now, I invite Sir D.K. Sanyal, Treasurer of Board of Trustee, IISWBM, to speak about his father, late Professor D.K. Sanyal, Founder Director of IISWBM. Sir, please.
Good afternoon to all of you, Dr. Basu, Dr. Mathur, Mr. Chakravarti, Mr. Mukherjee, and the eminent panelists, Dr. Agarwal, Dr. Binoy Chaudhary, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students. We have gathered today to honor our founder director, my father, and also listen to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Ajay Mathur, speak on energy security in India, new opportunities for sustainability, and thereafter listen to the panel discussion on carbon emission. My father, late Professor Sanyal, was born in Faridpur, now in Bangladesh, on 27th November 1905. He completed his entrance examination from Faridpur and then migrated to Mindapur to complete BCom from Calcutta University. His elders encouraged him to attempt for MCom, and he passed MCom from Calcutta University in 1930, standing first in first class, and was the university gold medalist and prizeman in that year. The world opened up to a brilliant personality with an intense desire for welfare of humanity, the prime driving force for his constructive endeavors throughout his life. My father, Professor Sanyal, pursued both in the academic and the administrative fields with exemplary success. A brochure containing the biodata of late Professor D.K. Sanyal and Dr. Ajay Mathur have already been circulated for your appreciation. The D.K. Sanyal Memorial Lecture was instituted to perpetuate the memory of our founder director in the Golden Jubilee year of IISWBM, celebrated in the year 2003-2004 by the then director Sri Ashok Datta. A first day stamp and cover was also issued by Government of India on the Golden Jubilee. The first memorial lecture, however, was given by Sri Prafulla Chandra Sen, the then Chief Minister of West Bengal and President of IISWBM, on 27th November 1971 at the 66th birth anniversary, entitled D.K. Sanyal, the Great Organizer. The details of all earlier memorial lectures are also shown separately along with the brochure. Late Professor Sanyal had an excellent academic background and also a brilliant career, with the rare distinction of having so many firsts to his credits. Professor Sanyal was the pioneer in establishing management education in India and Southeast Asia, and was instrumental in establishing the first diploma course in management from All India Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, as it was known earlier, from Calcutta University in 1954 with founder President Dr. B.C. Roy. The then Professor Sanyal had done exemplary pioneering work in arranging for campus interviews and employment of Calcutta University graduates through the Appointments and Information Board of the Calcutta University from 1937 to 1953 in the mercantile firms of Calcutta, the then business capital of India. The concept of placement, till then unheard of in the rest of India. Professor Sanyal again got Indian Jute Mills Association interested in setting up the Institute of Jute Technology in 1946 for training jute industry technical personnel in India instead of sending them to Dundee, Scotland. Professor Sanyal was honored with the badge of an officer of the outstanding personality with conviction and was an untiring constructive worker and a nature's gentleman. He was the principal architect of modern management education in India. I am sure all of you are eagerly waiting to listen to Dr. Mathur on energy security in India and then thereafter the panel discussions. May I now request Dr. Mathur to kindly deliver the memorial lecture. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your informative lecture on life journey of late Professor D.K. Sanyal. So without further delay, it's my privilege to invite today's speaker, His Excellency Dr. Ajay Mathur, to deliver D.K. Sanyal Memorial Lecture. Dr. Ajay Mathur is the Director General of the International Solar Alliance, or the ISA, a treaty-based organization. As of 1st Jan 2025, 120 countries have signed the treaty. Prior to his election as the Director General of ISA, Dr. Mathur was the Director General of the Energy and Resource Institute, or TERI, and earlier of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, or BEE. He has also been a Dean at TERI, President of the wind energy company Switzerland, and team leader for climate change in the World Bank. He was also the director of the Green Climate Fund in its foundational phase. As DG of ISA, Dr. Mathur has built up its advocacy, capacity building, and project preparation activities. He has led the preparation of reports that are prepared on annual basis, the creation of National Center for Capacity Building, and enabling countries to make institutional changes encompassing both regulatory and policy changes and project development. He has created a global solar facility with a payment guarantee window to attract investment in small solar in Africa. This facility will later be expanded to Asia and Latin America. A solar startup challenge has also been initiated to identify solar startups in the developing world who could generate nationally relevant projects. Till then, the challenge has identified 20 startups in Africa, 30 in Asia Pacific region, and will identify 20 startups in the Latin America and Caribbean region in 2025. These startups are then put through accelerator workshop in raising finance, enhancing technological capability, and in brand building so that some of them become the Amazons for tomorrow. In addition, Dr. Mathur had led the ISA to bring solar into people's life through events such as international solar festivals, etc. These activities have served to build ISA's credibility in enabling solar energy as the energy sources of choice. Earlier, as DG of TERI, he led the institute activities into the energy transition areas and on air quality improvement initiative, and strengthened his work in the energy and environment policy area, the industrial energy efficiency area, and the development of biotechnological innovations, especially in agricultural applications. These activities resulted in the national and global recognitions that transition to carbon-free energy was possible in India while meeting the growing energy need for its people. As DG of BE, he brought energy efficiency into our lives through the STAR Leveling Program, the Performance Achieve and Trade or PAT program, etc. BE also headed the creation of a public sector company, Energy Efficiency Service Limited or EESL, as a market maker for energy efficiency services. This innovative business model adopted by EESL, enabling the Indian market to switch over to energy efficient LED bulbs in less than 4 years. He was a member of the Indian Prime Minister Council on Climate Change and also was co-chair of the Global Energy Transition Commission and the Cooling Initiative of the One Earth Summit. He was appointed as a Chevalier National de Mérite by the President of France in recognition of his outstanding commitment to preserve the environment and energy-related challenges. He was also a member of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, which was awarded the 2007 Nobel Peace Prize. Dr. Mathur received a bachelor degree in chemical engineering from the then University of Roorkee in 1979 and subsequently the master's and PhD degrees from the University of Illinois. He has received the Distinguished Alumnus Award from both of his alma maters. So, he is also a fellow of Institute of Engineers of the National Academy of Engineers and the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyor. So this is the short CV of Dr. Mathur. So there are many more in his bag. So please welcome Dr. Mathur with a warm round of applause.
Thank you very much for this great introduction. I shall venture to deliver the Professor D.K. Sanyal Memorial Lecture with some of his greatness. Professor Sanyal came very early in my life because he was all over India the quintessential institution builder. He obviously built up this institution. He also built up, as Mr. Sanyal just mentioned, the National Jute Center. It is creating institutions which provide for people to be developed every day till today. This is a great vision. He was, as was said, a great organizer, but he was more than an organizer. He helped bring institutions and people together to enable them to work together towards the common good. And it is this common good that I would like to focus on in the lecture that follows. I would like to talk about the energy security issues that are of great and paramount interest to India, but to the rest of the world as well. But I will confine myself to India, and I will confine myself to electricity. That is of greatest interest, and I think as far as work is concerned, I think that is the area in which the greatest amount of effort has been carried out. The first thing that I'd like to focus on is the fact that in the past year, in 2024, we have finally got prices for round-the-clock renewable electricity which are less than that of new coal-based power stations. Round-the-clock renewable electricity is produced by a mix of solar, of wind, and of storage, batteries or pumped storage, providing electricity at 5 rupees or less per kilowatt hour. At the same time, coal power stations which have been which have been commissioned in the past 1 year have received prices from regulators of more than 5 rupees, 5.15, 5.50 per kilowatt hour at the same availability rate, availability of 85 to 90% for generation. This means that a very important milestone has been crossed. Because if you take a coal power station now to a bank, the first question they'll ask you is that when round the round-the-clock renewable energy is cheaper. And I emphasize the word round-the-clock. It can mean even at 4 o'clock in the morning when you need electricity, it is available. If it's not solar, it's wind. If it's not solar or wind, it's from the battery. So when the bank says this, what answer can you give? There are three answers, or actually two. The first is, where is the land? Right now we don't have a problem of land, but as the solar and wind and battery demand grows, we will need more and more land. A back of envelope calculation that we did indicated that if all the Thar desert was used for solar and wind and batteries, that would be enough to meet our energy demand in 2070. Do we want that? No, we would like land to be available across the country. We would like land to be available in Madhya Pradesh, in Maharashtra, in Chhattisgarh, in Bengal. There is the problem of how do you get land when people are already working on it. I believe that there exist solutions. We need to carry them further. For example, in Tamil Nadu, when we first went in with wind, the wind companies were buying entire tracts of land and selling off as much as you wanted. They would set up the machines, they would run the plants, you would get the returns, if you are the investor. Later on, this model was changed into buying only the area under the wind energy machine and the roads connecting the wind energy machines. Even later, and this was on the farmers' call, the land was leased to the manufacturer. So the farmer got a regular return apart from being able to farm the rest. The short point I want to leave you with is that models are possible. We will need the state, the power of the state, to aggregate this. They can aggregate it, they can lease it, they will have to pay the initial lease, but then they can pass on the lease to the solar developer, who can then start paying the lease. That is the price that they pay for setting up the solar energy. I believe that this kind of a model provides benefits on a recurring basis, both to the farmer and to the developer of renewable energy. I don't think any of us want any more, what is very familiar to you, we don't want any more C groups. But we want economic development, we want industrial development, but we want all the landowners and their rights to be protected as well. The second problem is that of transmission lines. If you have, developing a solar project takes 2 years, even if it is 1,000 megawatts or 2,000 megawatts. But developing a transmission line to that place takes a minimum of 3 years, if not 4 years. Which means that transmission lines will have to start being built before. Obviously, if you are able to identify tracts of land, then these transmission lines can be built. Gujarat identified an area, Khavda, on the India-Pakistan border in the lower run of Kutch, the upper run of Kutch, where 30 gigawatts, 30,000 megawatts of solar and wind and batteries could be set up. It therefore makes great sense to make a transmission line from Khavda to the nearest place where they can connect to the national grid or take it to a load center like Ahmedabad. We need these kinds of places, because ultimately what would happen is, if you do wind in one place, if you do solar in a second place, and you do batteries in a third place, you will have 3 transmission lines, each of which is used for 33% of the time or 30% of the time, rather than one line being used 90% of the time. This it does is it enables us to do transmission planning ahead of the solar planning itself. The third issue is that of money. What we have seen is that solar plus wind plus storage together costs almost double of a coal power station of equivalent size providing electricity in the same amount at 4 o'clock in the morning, and obviously at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 7 o'clock in the evening. The key issue then arises, are we not able to get this double the amount of money, which then enables electricity to be supplied at a price which is less than that of coal, but the investment cost is obviously more. We can, but think of it when it happens at scale. Today we spend about 15% of our national investment in the power sector. This will go up to 30%. Possible, but you can hear the sucking sound coming out of the other sectors because they will not get it. Which means, can we enhance the speed, the velocity with which money is invested? As I said earlier, solar projects can be completed in 2 years. You give 1 year for them to start recovering their money by generating electricity and selling it, and therefore getting money. At that point, it will become viable for them to raise money through bonds, because at least many of you are much younger, you have not even begun your careers, but for people like me, I am very worried about my pension funds. This is a safe place to keep pension funds. Consequently, the project can earn these bonds and pay back the loan. So the loan is paid back in 3 years, and that money can be invested again in a solar and a renewable energy project. The point being that it is possible to use the same money twice, while at the same point raising more money from our incomes, from our pensions that can be feed into the sector. The point I want to leave you with is that while we have crossed the first barrier of the economic value of renewable electricity round the clock, we have not yet crossed the barrier of making land and transmission lines and money available. We will need to work towards it. This leads me to the question of where is it that we see opportunities occurring in the years to come as we go ahead with more and more solar energy and we go ahead with more and more renewable energy including batteries. As you are looking to your future, I would suggest that supposing we focus on electric vehicle manufacturing, and I would suggest that we focus on two-wheeler electric vehicle manufacturing. Why? As a country, we sell 3 times as many two-wheelers as cars in India. It makes great sense to invest in electric two-wheelers. But these electric two-wheelers need charging. If you look at the data for today, then of the electric vehicles, of the electric two-wheelers that are sold in India, something of the order of 70 to 80%, very large proportion of the electric two-wheelers sold in urban areas in India are electric. But that drops to 5 or 6% when you go to the rural areas. Why? Because we don't get adequate time for charging. We don't get electricity erratic. Which means that if you have an electric two-wheeler, you're not very sure whether you can run it at the time you want to run. Whether it will be fully charged and you can go to the office tomorrow. I have a small farm in central UP. I was very pleasantly surprised when I went there last month and found found that there were electric three-wheelers running there as public transport. And while talking to them, I realized that they were essentially figuring that they would be able to run for 5 days of the week instead of 7. This is obviously because of the erratic nature of electricity supply, which leads them therefore to ask me as a consumer for higher costs. This means that for electric vehicles to be effective, to be at a scale, we need stand-alone charging infrastructure. So the second thing, so electric vehicles is the first. The second thing that we need are stand-alone solar charging systems. Obviously not solar alone, but solar plus batteries. Therefore, you can charge these at any time that you want. Well, I believe that solar charging stations are the big opportunity of the future. The third area is using solar electricity in manufacturing. I'll give you an example. Calcutta is in the larger base of, say, the steel making community in India, which was based in Jamshedpur and now is also based in Odisha. Odisha, Jharkhand, Bihar, or are the areas where this is developed. It makes great sense to look at how we can look at green steel. We have something of the order of, I don't know, somewhere near 140, somebody says 140, somebody says 150 million tons of steel making capacity. But this is going to triple by 2040. People want to make investments now. But the green technology is not there. What is green technology? In steel making. In steel making, you essentially have to add coke to steel to reduce it. And that produces carbon dioxide. Can we use some other reducing agent instead of carbon, which produces CO2? Global efforts have found that we can use hydrogen. And what is produced is hydrogen plus oxygen makes water, so water is emitted instead of hydrogen. There have been a large number of technological demonstrations of this technology, and the leading technology developer is in Sweden, who are developing a hydrogen-based manufacturing system, but it is not yet ready. In other words, today, plants can be hydrogen ready. How do you do that? I think this is an area where we need to focus a great deal. Making plants safe, because working with hydrogen is very different from working with any other fuels that we know of. They are lighter. When they burn, they go straight up. When I was studying engineering, I was taught that the hydrogen fire is the most dangerous fire, because you can actually walk into it without even knowing it is there, because it's invisible. In other words, while we have been successful in using hydrogen at an industrial scale, we have not yet used it at a retail scale. We need to learn to do that and set up the safety rules that are necessary for that to occur. There are electric two-wheelers or electric vehicles in general, solar charging stations, green steel are some of the areas where we work. Another area that I think is of particular importance, especially as we look at other countries which are not yet fully connected, but India where we are fully connected but the supply of electricity is erratic, is the use of solar mini grids or stand-alone solar battery systems for providing electricity, particularly to homes, but also to a variety of other uses. In the neighboring states of Bihar and of UP, we have seen these solar mini grids come up in large numbers. Large numbers means in the hundreds, because of regulations that have enabled them. And they provide electricity at times when the grid is unable to do so. So it is used for quality purposes, for the reasons of providing 24-hour service when it is not available. But in many parts of the world, especially if you look at Africa, where the grid is not yet fully developed, these solar mini grids make great sense to provide basic electric needs. What we have found is that if you extend the grid, remember, in these villages very little amount of electricity is used, and therefore it is very expensive to extend the grid to meet these needs. Solar plus batteries are a cheaper way. And we have found that if you look at African costs, the distance is about 10 kilometers. If you have to extend the grid by more than 10 kilometers, then putting a solar mini grid is cheaper than extending the grid. We believe that with the Indian experience, there is a huge demand that is waiting to be met in other parts of the world where energy access, or at least electricity access, has not yet been provided. We are looking also at solar manufacturing. As far as solar manufacturing is concerned, what we see is that the vast amount of manufacturing today is concentrated in China. Concentrated, I would say that 95% of the solar wafers are made in China. It's great because they're able to do it at a very low cost. But the concentration of manufacturing creates a problem. Because what it does is that supply chains from China to the rest of the world get hugely affected. So there are months of the year, at least 2 months in Africa, 1 month off the coast of South America, where you do not find solar panels because of supply chain constraints, because the shipping constraints that occur from Shanghai to these places. It means that especially as we are looking at enhancing by an order of 3 at the very minimum, today will be as high as 8, the amount of solar panels that we use by 2030 as compared to today. So in 2030 we'll be using at least 3 times as many solar panels as we're using today. It means that we'll have to geographically diversify manufacturing. As we looked into the economics, we found that if you are importing solar cells and putting the solar cells together to make solar modules, it makes economic sense if you've got enough demand. You can do it in India. You have been doing it in India. But you can also do it in various parts of Africa, you can do it in various parts of Latin America, you can do it in various parts of Asia, and so on. However, making solar cells is a challenge. Because of the very low prices at which China is able to sell it, China has invested hugely in the numbers of companies that make solar cells, but also a huge amount in research and development, and in the creation of the high quality manpower that is needed to man these solar panel manufacturing, these solar cell manufacturing plants, that it is very difficult to complete. I'll give you an order of magnitude number. Order of magnitude, it costs approximately 20 rupees to make a watt of solar cells. However, China has been selling it in Indian tenders at 10 rupees a watt. In one tender, they went down as low as 6 rupees a watt. But this shows a dilemma. And that dilemma is the Chinese industry is not a huge monolith. It consists of many separate industries. And these industries are competing against each other. The total number of these industries is such that their production capacity is almost double the world's demand today. For them to survive, they need to lower their prices. That's the only reason you will buy and they will get revenue. This means that there are opportunities as well. Because earlier on, when this same thing happened with electric vehicles in China, it led to a huge amount of consolidation amongst industries in China. However, there's a problem. And that problem is an opportunity for us, because that problem is that solar technologies are changing day by day. And because they're changing day by day, you can buy a plant and keep it under mothballs. But then when you start producing, by that time, new technologies are available. I would suggest that I'm looking at the students here, should focus on making solar cells that use new technologies. For example, we are looking right now at a base of percosites, and on top of it is the traditional silicon-based solar cell that is used. The percosite layer with the silicon layer creates a larger bandwidth over which the solar energy can be converted into electricity. It also addresses the percosite's major problem, which is that of degeneration with age. Because what it does is it encapsulates it in this silicon layer. At the lab level, we have seen huge changes in efficiency. The best cells that we are selling in the market now are at 22.5% efficiency. Some of these lab cells are at 30% plus efficiency. We therefore need to see these new technologies come. I am therefore looking at you to see these various opportunities that come up in the energy system of tomorrow. Whether it is electric two-wheelers, whether it is the creation of the bond market to refinance renewable energy assets, whether it is the adoption of these newer solar technologies in manufacturing such as steel, whether it is in solar mini-grids, especially in Africa, whether it is in the development of these kinds of innovative manufacturing technologies. I foresee that we will therefore have a huge amount of energy knowledge and energy expertise to be able to export to the rest of the world, apart from meeting our own needs. I would very much like to hope that some of you would be interested in this and will be able to develop enterprises that convert these ideas into actual implementation. As was mentioned earlier, at the International Solar Alliance, we carry out an identification of new solar startups. We were delighted to see the range of solar startups in Africa, in East Asia and Europe, but particularly in India, because you have to have a basic amount of solar to go in for the more nuanced developments. For example, one of the startups who we identified had developed a robotic mechanism for cleaning solar cells. Now, if you don't have enough solar cells, then cleaning them and developing an automated system for cleaning them does not make sense. I hope that these are the kinds of opportunities that you will see and you will convert into reality tomorrow. Thank you very, very much.
and its future opportunities and potential for our sustainable future. So, if you have any question, you may raise your hand and please ask it. So, we may take few questions. Yes, sir.
Professor, I was taking notes in my mobile while you were giving. It was indeed a very good talk. I just have two very short questions. Number one, everywhere, of course, with solar we need the storage, and this storage and lithium and battery and environment and mining, this raises a huge plethora of issues. Do you think, for example, sodium batteries, what is the present trend going on now in the world? I would like to understand. And my second point is, you mentioned about the Thor desert and all of it needs to be covered. Why are we not looking at the seas and water bodies? In Kolkata itself, for example, we have the East Kolkata wetlands, and nothing is allowed. No construction can be there by law. Now, can we have floating solar cells over there? Do you think there is a merit in that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Sam. Maybe I take 2 or 3 questions together.
So as you say, I'll disturb you. So the first question is, obviously, we are just these accelerations of this particular directions of energy mix is driving from different corners. Initially, we were the resource depletion, and then we were rather more accelerated due to the climate change. So what energy mix will actually make that particular path, the energy transition, that will depend on the resources available and the demand also. I mean, do you think that is the general global trend, or it can have the localized context more important, number one? And the second query is, we know that the behavioral change in the energy conservation approach made a lot of issues, the demand side management and other. Is there any study on accommodate the renewable energy? There needs certain behavioral change because there is a gap between the demand and supply. We have to depend on the natural availability rather than the actual supply from fossil fuels.
My first question is regarding the green bonds that you talked about. We are speaking about this for a very long time, but it is not getting popularized. And my second question is that I was recently in USA. I've met many, international firms who are very interested to collaborate in green hydrogen. How do we attract them? How do we harness them to come back to India?
Sir, good afternoon. See, the recent trend of development focusing on environment, sustainability and governance. Sustainability is an issue which is linked with pollution control to be executed in different power stations with fossil fuel fired boilers. How do you feel that, given the Indian climate of power engineering, power utility and power distribution, this environment, sustainability and governance movement at the global standard can be kept at par?
Let me answer. What?
So, Dr. Mathur, I have 2 very basic questions. Number one is, today the base level generator is fossil fuel generation on which renewables are piggybacking. So, in the scenario of tomorrow, are we thinking about replacing the base level generator with nuclear power plants? So that's the only other alternative which we have at this point in time. Otherwise, we will continue to remain with coal. Second point is with respect to the flora and fauna, because when we talk about renewables, particularly wind farms, solar farms, it affects the local flora and fauna. Wind farms, for example, pose a huge hazard to birds, to the avian population, as far as Mr. Sen talked about using the water bodies. So that again would affect the fish and the marine creatures out there. So this is something that we need to think about before we jump into this on this path. So I thought, I would like your views on this. Thank you.
So we have, there is another hall full with students. I hope there are some questions also. Is it possible, digital team, is it possible to get their questions also?
Sir, some of the students who are downstairs but having questions, they have come up for the questions.
Okay. So let me.
And I also have a question.
Okay.
Very
So what we will do is the next round is only for students. So we will build Dr. Chaudhary as a bridge between the students and us oldies. You have the last word in this round.
Should I put it here because it may be relevant? Because you have the mission that one sun, one world, one grid. And it is also need for country to have more and more mini grids. So how you visualize that they will play a complementary role to each other, and being a very much distributed kind of source, and as we know that a lot of talents in India are there, we are not able to reach them. As you have rightly mentioned, we need more innovation. So how solar can actually accelerate the catching up the talents of India?
Okay. By my count, I have 11 questions which I will try to answer. The first had to do with the issue of solar and storage. So lithium is a particular problem, and lithium is a problem. But as a engineer, what I remember is this is not the first time that such a problem of resources has occurred. Whenever such a problem has occurred, what has happened? There are three things that have occurred. The first is finding more of it. So, for example, in the 1960s, we did a large geological survey of India, and we noted many things. For example, we found bauxite in Jammu, but lithium was not even mentioned in the 1960s. Now we went back to look at bauxite mining in Jammu. We found lithium there as well. So I think what happens is that by adding these critical minerals to the geological list of things that are of interest, you find more deposits than you did earlier. So that's the first. The second is that use less of it. If we look at batteries that were produced in 2010 and batteries that were produced in 2023, we see a 10 to 12% reduction in the amount of lithium per cell. This is important because what has happened is, because of competitive pressures, the lithium battery manufacturers, to compete amongst themselves, reduce the amount of lithium because it's an expensive resource, and therefore are able to compete better, get you and I to buy. The third thing that happened is what you mentioned, the sodium, because sodium is much, much more easily available. And therefore the third thing that happens is not of a kind substitute developed. Sodium ion batteries are now so well developed that a Volkswagen subsidiary is providing it as the battery of choice in their hybrid vehicles. I think that this will continue. This is important because what it does is lithium has a competitor. The market between lithium and sodium will now always be based on economics and not so much on technology. But the other point that you raised, which was of the waste management, is very, very important. Today, approximately 90% of lead acid batteries are recycled, either officially or unofficially. Why? Because the lead plates have a value. Similarly, we need to start making lithium-ion batteries into fashion, that the lithium can be reused when these batteries have been used. That's the only way to ensure that collection and ultimately recycling occurs. Is this happening? Well, in labs around the world, work is going on. But we will need to move to the level of standards so that battery manufacturers can use those standards. Somebody alone doing it will make it much more expensive. So everybody is. That is why standards are. We need to work towards that. The other issue that you raised was that of the Thar Desert. Yes, Thar Desert is good, but that alone will not be adequate, because if I'm getting electricity in Delhi, why on earth should Rajasthan and Haryana have to pay? Why should I have to pay them? Can't I do it somewhere closer? So it can be done closer. But because currently the rules allow the transmission of electricity, particularly something known as the interstate surcharge, not to be charged on renewable electricity, it's happening where the resource is best. But I'm already seeing that the demand is now coming based on the land cost rather than on the cost of transmission, because the cost of transmission is very small compared to the land cost. So, in my view, if lands are made available, then this issue of interstate transport, interstate surcharge, leading to plants being located far away, will also become less. It will not disappear, but it will become less. The third question was on acceleration, local versus global needs. This is a tough question, and this is something that we face every day. When we looked at the kinds of solar policies, the regulations, the training programs, etc., that are needed in different parts of the world, we found that there are at least 4 kinds of countries. The first are the so-called developed countries, where to a very large extent the per capita use of electricity is more or less constant. It's increasing, but it's more or less constant. What this means is that they can go for solar electricity generation during the day, but at night they can go to their existing power. The issue that you had said about basing it on renewable power. So renewable power is based on fossil fuel. If you look at how the US or Germany or Japan use solar, at night they continue to use the source that is most economical for them when solar is not available. So that was the first. The second is the large developing countries like India. Because what you see here is that the demand is growing very fast. And because demand is growing very fast, my colleagues at CSC will ask me, so do you want us to set up both solar and fossil fuel? Solar during the day and fossil fuel at night? That doesn't make sense. Thankfully, the price discovery of the price of round-the-clock renewable electricity being less than that of new coal-based power stations has been helpful in this direction. Because now companies can take a considered decision that they invest in solar plus wind plus battery. That provides them with a 24-hour base power rather than fossil fuel power. This also implies that for countries like India, batteries development and battery cost reduction is of far greater importance than it is in the West. The third group of countries that we looked at were those which were smaller countries, smaller developing countries. there we saw that by far and large the grid had not been developed fully. And solar mini grids make much greater sense in meeting the energy demands, actually energy abundance, rather than just meeting demand, than it does grid extension. So grid is important. Grid is important especially for the large towns. But instead of extending the grid, they can talk of solar mini grids with local distribution around it. And the fourth group of countries which we looked at were the small island developing states. You know, I was amazingly, it hit me when I visited Fiji. To go from one island to the other, you have to go in a boat. Grid. That boat runs on diesel. Who's talking of electric boats? Nobody. Will Fiji be able to develop and manufacture it? No, they don't have the capacity. They don't have the human capacity. They certainly don't have the engineering and manufacturing, the people capacity. It will have to be done in countries like India. Now, Kochi is developing a boat, electric boat as a ferry. Can it be developed as a high-speed boat between islands? I think these are the kinds of challenges that the small island states offer, to which we do not have answers at all. So these are the four groups which have very, very different needs. The developed countries, the large developing countries, the smaller developing countries, and the small island states. I believe that the four of them for very distinct solar approaches in the years to come. And this, to a certain extent, answers the question that it is far more important in a country where the demand is developing both at night and in the day for renewable energy to be the base power rather than fossil fuel to be the base power. Behavioral change. We lost out. People's dependence on electricity is so high that at most what you can do is get them to use the washing machine at the times when electricity is available, nothing more than that. Consequently, the approach now is the opposite. That you change the electricity supply system. That the grid manager is able to integrate fossil fuel electricity and renewable electricity so that you meet that demand at any given time. This obviously implies that we have got an excess of capacity. But I am completely open to the idea of behavioral change. I strongly believe in it. But I must confess that this is a battle that we seem to be losing more often than we are winning. You asked about green bonds. A very small movement has been made in as much as, at least at the international level, we have started seeing green bonds being developed. And many Indian companies buying these or issuing these green bonds, but not yet the state. What we need is a platform, an electronic platform in which people can invest in green bonds, because people will invest in large amounts of money. But give it out as retail, because individual projects will do it. That platform needs to be developed. And I'm hoping that of the many young people here, we will see these kinds of ideas getting pushed. Green hydrogen. You know, India has created an ecosystem for green hydrogen. It has also said that we will look at a demand for green hydrogen. But the fundamental problem that occurs is that green hydrogen today costs something of the order of $4 to $4.50 each. But grey hydrogen made from the reformation of natural gas costs $2 each. We we need to see this price decline. It is occurring. If you had asked me 2 years ago, the price of green hydrogen was $5, it's $4 now. So we need somebody to provide this difference between $2 and $4. In the European market, there, particularly Germany, has said that it will buy a certain amount of hydrogen and provide a premium price for it. They have a set of conditions. How is the electricity generated to make the green hydrogen and so on. Those are the kinds, so it's a nitty-gritty where the discussions are now focused. The issue of ESG. You know, this is a subject which we will have to keep track of as we go. Why? Because on the issue of environment and sustainability, while we are looking at the future, we are also looking at the evolving technology. So for example, there is in India an ESG fund which is managed by Mukund Rajan, who is the brother of Raghuram Rajan of RBI fame. And Mukund says that the greatest challenge that ESG has, so first of all, as far as returns are concerned, they don't have a problem. What they do have a problem with is reporting. Transparency in reporting on ESG, unless it is made mandatory, what happens is that if I invest a huge bit in ESG manufacturing, in ESG reporting, and you don't, then there is an imbalance in the costs. My own belief is that ESG reporting helps. There is no reason why the companies cannot set up progressive goals. I go to step 1, then I go to step 2, then I go to step 3. There's no reason why they can't. But we need to see these kinds of plans come from all industries, not only some. So now the key issue of development of solar, clearly it can be developed. Floating solar, particularly in densely populated areas, makes great sense. So for example, in Bengal, you have the West Puralia reservoir, and there is no reason why solar panels cannot be put on top. We have something of the order of 1,000 megawatts of floating solar in India as well, which are operating. NTPC. Yeah. So NTPC has 2 projects and 2 more under construction. So I think it total adds up to a little more than 1,000. There is, I think, something like 300 something megawatts which is already functioning, and approximately 700 megawatts which is under construction. Okay, great. So floating solar makes great sense, and especially if you look at densely populated areas, it makes much greater sense. Yes, the problem of flora and fauna do occur. We carried out an environmental this was required by the Bangladesh Ministry of Environment, who was very concerned that the floating solar would affect plants, animals, and the lives of fishermen. So what is important is to allow enough space between panels of solar, between panels, so that cleaning can be done and that boats can go through. After every 4 or 5 or 6 panels, you have a space. What it does is that it actually becomes a breeding ground for a lot of biomass, including fish.
The best examples are out of a project which occurred in the Maldives and the ones in Kayankulam in Kerala, where we see that the biomass increased by almost 50% with the addition of the floating solar facilities. It seems to indicate that it would probably be good, though we see the behavioral change we haven't seen in people, and we will then go and hide beneath these solar panels. Who knows what will happen? Your question about Osowog. Osowog is a connection between grids. So the West Asian grid is connected to the Indian grid. The Indian grid is connected to the East Asian grid, and so on. We are not looking at intensifying the existing grid infrastructures. So India and, for example, UAE could get into an agreement to see how a development of a linkage system is done, so that solar electricity from the Gulf, when it is still day there and it is night in India, so solar electricity can flow to India. There remain many challenges to this. The point you raised of local grids, I think the local grids will be required no matter what. So it's not a matter of using only the large grids or the once on one world, one grid, replacing solar mini grids, but both of them occurring in parallel. And the last issue was, what is the second question?
How solar can help
Okay. So one is a very simple way. And the very simple way is we are seeing that solar provides electricity in areas allowing people to both study and therefore be recognized by the academic system. That's the normal way. But what solar is also doing, very interestingly, is providing opportunities. So for example, I talked of the electric three-wheelers operating in the village that I come from. Solar charging stations can provide an additional source of job employment opportunity. You can use the local talent entrepreneurially for those purposes as well. I think we will now focus on questions only from the audience, from the students. Students, we will do this offline. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Dipandita Roy. I am from Final Year Energy Management. Sir, my question is that what can be the solutions for India to compete with China in case of manufacturing solar cells? And sir, my second question is, what is round-the-clock renewable electricity?
Sorry, I took it for granted. I should have explained it right in the beginning. See, solar is available only when the sun is shining. So what happens when it is not shining? It is at those points of time that people need electricity. So for example, in Calcutta you have a peak that occurs in the evening. Solar is not available. What do you do that? So that is what round-the-clock electricity is, that electricity is available when you need it. And that is why people say we will do solar plus some storage device like batteries, or pumped storage, or add solar and batteries which reduce the time for which I need to do the batteries in order to supply electricity. So round-the-clock electricity is getting electricity when I want, like from a coal power station. Your first question was solutions for India to compete with China.
something like 45 gigawatts of solar cell manufacturing has been awarded, though none of it has come online as yet. I was told that some of it will come online this year in 2025, but somebody else told me that the first time we will see will be by March 2026.
Sir, my name is Shubham Pal. So I want to ask a question that how ISA is playing a role in solar PV module waste management, which will help in achieving circular economy.
Okay. So, you know, as far as ISA is concerned, a lot of our members, the total amount of the solar energy they will use, even at the peak, will not be very large. And therefore, it is not economical for them to do recycling. But we will need to collect those. So collection is something that everybody needs to do. And for collection, remember this collection is occurring 25 years after the installation. That company may or may not survive at that point of time. Right now, the rules we have in most countries, including India, look at extended producer responsibility, EPR. And extended producer responsibility is that the producer says, I will collect it when it goes back. That company may not exist. So that means that we need upfront, with the sale of the panel, to charge certain fees, 50 paisa or 1 rupee per watt, to be able to make a fund that can be used for recycling. So the first is enabling collection. So this is something on which we provide advice on what kind of collection strategies have worked. The second is recycling. This is a tough one. It's tough one because the technologies of today, the solar panel technologies of today, are very different from the solar technologies of 25 years ago. The panels that are becoming waste today, all of their materials cannot be used in solar panels that are made today. Which means that as far as recycling is concerned, you need to make sure that that recycled material goes somewhere where it is of use. So all the material should be separable. This again, as in the case of batteries, means that you have to set up standards today to make the solar cells so that they are completely separable at the end of the day. We see glass, which is in front, and steel or aluminum, which is at the back, being recycled. But we don't see the solar material being recycled, it goes to landfills. That is where we need to focus. That is why standards and the collection fees are important today. So that is the advice which we give our member countries.
Okay. So we may also interact during this next panel discussion session. Anyone have any? Yeah. Just one question. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Vikram Shah from Final Year Transportation and Logistics Management. Sir, my question is to you is that in the current scenario, what the whole world is talking about is sustainability, and we are being educating ourselves regarding the importance of it. But sir, transportation is such a sector where achieving sustainability is a bit challenging. And sir, in a country like India, can solar energy be a viable option in the near future so that we can substitute the traditional fossil fuels in transportation and adopt solar energy into it?
Even today, the cost of using petrol or diesel in a vehicle, two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, is far more than using electricity. I use an electric car, I've been using it for the last 4 years. An electric, my cost of operation is approximately 1 rupee a kilometer. equivalent car using petrol, the cost of operation was about 4 to 6 rupees per kilometer. The major problem is that of the first cost. If you add the cost of the battery, it becomes more expensive. If you don't add the cost of the battery, it's actually cheaper than an internal combustion engine. One of the new cars, electric cars that have been introduced, I think it's the MG Pulsar, if I'm not wrong, is being introduced with a caveat that you can actually pay for the vehicle alone and pay for the battery separately. So for the battery you pay for X kilometers, X rupees per kilometer driven after whenever you replace the battery. And you pay less for it. But for those people who are buying on an EMI, it's actually better to buy electric vehicle, which is why you're seeing everybody, all the electric vehicles, all the logistics vehicles moving towards electric. So in my view, this is a change, this is a transition that is happening, and the availability of more and more charging points will make it happen faster.
So students are encouraged to interact more during this next session, next panel discussion session. Now I request our guest of honor, Mr. Suvi Chakravarti, former President BCCI and former MD and CEO Exide Industries, to say a few remarks. Sir, please.
So, Dr. Ajay Mathur, Professor Basu, Mr. D.K. Sanyal, Professor Agarwal, distinguished panelists, and also dear students. I think it was a very, very engaging session with Dr. Mathur. I don't think there is anyone better than Dr. Mathur to discuss on this topic, and I'm sure that all of you would love to ask many more questions, but due to paucity of time, that may not be possible. But I'm sure Dr. Mathur, if you were to reach out to him with your questions, I'm sure he will reply to you at some convenient time, because this is a very engaging topic. We are talking about energy security along with sustainability for a country which is growing and by leaps and bounds. So this in itself is a big challenge. But I'm sure with the help of experts like Dr. Mathur, we shall be addressing this topic. One of the topics allied topics I would like to be addressed more is the topic of recycling. Dr. Mathur touched on it. As a head of a company which was engaged in major recycling of lead acid batteries, I can tell you one thing, that recycling only works if the economics are in your favor. If the economics is against you, it will never work, no matter how much good intent is there all across the board. So it is very important to establish, in case of lithium ion or sodium ion, the economics. Because only when I can use the recycled material profitably in my manufacturing operation, then only the whole movement will take off. Before that, it will be only in fits and starts. So this is, I think, something which needs to be established. There are some large players, although Dr. Mathur talked about lab scale efforts going on for recycling. But I think there are companies like Loham, which have already established some large plants for recycling of lithium. So this is gradually gaining pace, and it has to gain pace. Because today, all of us in this room, if we place our hand on our hearts and ask ourselves this question, how do we dispose of the AA or the AAA batteries? All of us put it into the waste bin because there is no alternative. As educated people, we know this is not the right thing to do, but what do we do? So therefore, I think even before lithium ion comes in or sodium ion comes in, we should have a policy at the municipality level and at the state and at the city level, whereby disposal of batteries, existing batteries, let's talk about existing batteries that we use in our day-to-day life, that can be done properly in an environmentally friendly way. So these are things which come within the realm of behavioral changes which are required. We cannot always place the fault at the door of the government. We ourselves are equally to blame as individuals. And I'm sure that if we put our heads together, we will be able to chart out a path which will be equally profitable for industry as well as for our environment. So thank you once again, Dr. Mathur, for this excellent session.
Thank you, sir, for your excellent concluding remark. So now I request Sri D.K. Sanyal, Treasurer, Board of Trustee, IISWBM, to present the Institute memento to Dr. Mathur. Volunteer that is contest. Just for photographs. Now I request Professor Dr. K. Agarwal, Director Acting IISWBM and President IISWBM Kolkata Chapter, India, to present Association of Energy Engineers Best Energy Professional Award to His Excellency Dr. Ajay Mathur for his outstanding commitment and contribution in the field of energy and overall sustainability and bringing energy efficiency and renewable energy applications into our lives. Here I would like to request Professor Dr. D.K. Chaudhary, Professor IISWBM Vice President of Asia Subcontinent and Vice President of the IISWBM Kolkata Chapter, India, to join us on the stage and grace this moment. Sir. Thank you, sir. I now request Professor Dr. K. Agarwal, Acting Director of IISWBM, to deliver the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, dearly. His Excellency Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General, International Solar Alliance, respected Professor Dr. Sujit Kumar Basu, President, Board of Governor, Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, respected Professor D.K. Sanyal, Treasurer, Board of Trustee, and Member, Board of Governor, IISWBM, Mr. Subir Chakravarti,
former President BCCI and former CEO Exide Industry Limited, our respected panelist, Mr. Dev A. Mukherjee, Chairperson, Energy Environment Committee and the Senior Vice President BCCI, Sri Devashish Sen, IAS, Founder, Director and CEO of New Bengal Consulting, Sri Vijay Singh Ji, MD Generation CSC Limited, Sri Pramod Singh, Chief Business Officer, India Power, other distinguished guests, member of BOZ and BOT IISWBM, my faculty colleague, officers and dear students. Good afternoon. Before we proceed for panel discussion on the mission net zero, restoring our reality, I have the honor and the privilege to propose a formal vote of thanks on behalf of the Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management in such auspicious occasion. We are delighted to have among us His Excellency Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General, International Solar Alliance. We would like to extend our sincere gratitude to Dr. Mathur for accepting our invitation to deliver Professor D.K. Sanyal Memorial Lecture and chair the panel discussion. Sir, we are really indebted to you for supporting and encouraging us and for enlightening us the scenario of the energy security as well as the challenges, and consider sharing your vast experience as Mr. Chakravarti had already mentioned that we do not have any other consider better person than you, and we are really honored to have amongst us today this afternoon and commemorate our D.K. Sanyal Memorial Lecture. Once again, thank you, and we acknowledge gratefully for being with us this afternoon, sir. To Professor Sujit Kumar Basu, our Honorable President, Board of Governor, Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, for his all the encouragement and the support for organizing this today's event. To Professor D.K. Sanyal, our Honorable Treasurer, Board of Trustee and Member, Board of Governor, IISWBM, for being so passionately involved in designing this today's entire event and also organizing this program so well and so consider passionately. We are also grateful to Sri Subir Chakravarti, former President BCCI and former CEO Exide Industry Limited, for being with us this afternoon, and also the very pertinent remark, being in the environment field for the last 3 decades. I can say that before we really invent new particular technology or go for innovation, we must have the end use, what we call it the life cycle assessment. So before we talk about the alternative, whether it's a lithium battery or whatever it may be, we have to find out, develop the infrastructure that how we will be going for the recycling. So once again, thank you, Mr. Chakravarti, for bringing this particular point in the limelight for all of us. We are also thankful to all our esteemed panelists for accepting our invitation and being part of this very important panel discussion which we are going to witness very soon. I would like to express our sincere thanks to our entire advisory and organizing committee team and all the faculty member staff for so passionately in getting involved in organizing this today's event. Last but not the least, I would like to express my sincere thanks to entire voluntary committee of our student as well as all the students for witnessing today's event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So here we are formally ending this session, and we are moving to our next session, a panel discussion on Mission Net Zero, Rhetoric or Reality. So chaired by His Excellency Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General IIS, and moderator Mr. Dev M. Mukherjee. So we are just changing this session, and volunteers are requested to do the needful and change this session. final year MBA students, Ms. Deepanita Roy from Energy Management to initiate this session. Synergist India is also an inward investor in the UK. He has also served as president of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry in the year 2020 to 21. By qualification as a lawyer, Dev Mukherjee has been a serial entrepreneur with over 40 years of work experience in diverse business domains. For the last 20 years, he has worked in the energy, water and sustainability services business and was executive chairman of EAGA India until 2012. Additionally, he has strongly advocated and promoted industry-academia partnerships in India and in the UK, and has served on the editorial board of Springer publication on sustainable energy technology and policies, a transformational journey. Following to this, I would also like to call upon the dais Sri Debashish Sen, IAS retired, founder, director and CEO of New Bengal Consultancy. Subsequently, I would like to call upon the stage Sri Brajesh Singh, Managing Director, CESC Generation Limited. Lastly, I would like to call upon the dais Sri Pramod Singh, Chief Business Officer, India Power. Now, I would like to request Professor Dr. K.M. Agrawal, Director Acting IISWBM, to felicitate Mr. Dev A. Mukherjee. Volunteers, please come forward. May I now request Professor Dr. K.M. Agrawal to please felicitate Sri Brajesh Singh, MD Generis.
I will request Professor Dr. B.K. Choudhury, Professor IISWBM, to felicitate Sri Debashish Sen. May I request Professor Dr. B.K. Choudhury to felicitate Pramod Singh. Now, I request moderator of the panel discussion, Mr. A. Dev Mukherjee, to initiate the session. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to be here at this institute which has such a glorious legacy and to be part of such an important event as the Memorial Lecture of the Founder Director of the Institute. And it's indeed our pleasure and an honor for all of us to have someone like Dr. Ajay Mathur amongst us and to speak on a subject that is not only close to his heart, but is close to all of us, and which is of paramount importance in today's context. And I have no hesitation in saying, and I think you will all agree with me, that we are living in an existential crisis. And our current lifestyle, with our current way of living, is indeed posing some enormous challenges, and especially balancing that out, economic development on the one hand, and sustainability or clean environment, or what we are going to discuss about net zero scenario. Balancing it out is a huge challenge, especially for a country like India. No discussion on energy security with renewable means is possible without discussing as a necessary corollary to it on the net zero targets or net zero mission, as the organizers have put it. And certainly with the milestones that this country has set in terms of 2030, 2050 and ultimately 2070, that has triggered this question, this debate, whether this mission on net zero is just a myth or is it a reality? Is it just rhetoric or is it something which will be realized in practice, in reality? I think it is certainly not a rhetoric, but rhetoric is also necessary to translate it or to give shape to reality. Therefore, both can coexist, rhetoric as well as reality. But net zero has to happen. We are fortunate to have Dr. Mathur chair this session, and I would request Dr. Mathur to give some pointers to the esteemed speakers who are here, who could then have their thoughts conveyed to us, and each speaker could have about, I know we are slightly running short of time, but each speaker could have about 10 to 12 minutes on the pointers set by Dr. Mathur in terms of this, the subject that we will be discussing this afternoon. And then, post your observations, the panelists, we could have a little bit of interaction, and then depending on the time, we could, of course, we would very much like to also take some questions from the students. So over to you, Dr. Mathur, in kick-starting the proceedings, and we will take it up from here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mukherjee. I think the title itself leads to a huge amount of angst at first, but later on, as Mr. Mukherjee explained, there's also this issue of when is rhetoric essential to meet reality. But as far as the ground rules are concerned, one of the things that I see is that with Rajesh here, with Pramod here, possibly with Mr. Sen, I think I'm going to this. We are largely focusing on electricity. I would therefore suggest that we look at whether it is possible to move to a net carbon zero future for electricity by 2070. 2070 is when our Prime Minister has said that we will move to net zero across the economy. So possibly electricity should happen a little bit earlier. I remember when this discussion occurred, there was a huge amount of discussion about the date, and it was said that if the developed countries are able to move to reach net zero by 2050, it will take about 20 years at the most to be able to absorb the net zero technologies, and therefore we will zero ourselves. But as we have discovered in the years since, the pathways for India are very different. Consequently, one of the things that I'd like each of the panelists to focus on is what are the challenges in meeting the net zero goal, but also what are the opportunities. I personally look at the opportunities as a far greater way of seizing the goal than looking at only the challenges. The challenges have to be looked at together with opportunities. And finally, it will be great if the panelists can focus on what do they think is a time frame in which this is possible. It could be 2090, it could be 2100, it could be 2050. But whatever it is, I look forward to hearing from them about it. I also hope that the panelists will be able to focus on the kinds of actions that in their own sectors they could help instigate in order for us to move towards net zero. So with that, let me turn it over to you, Dev, and to the panelists.
Thank you very much, Ajay. We indeed have a distinguished set of panelists, experts in their own rights, who would be deliberating on the pointers just given by the chair. It's my honor to introduce Shri Devashish Sen, who actually needs no introduction in this city, to be perfectly honest, because his contribution to the city, and especially to what we now know as New Town or Greater Calcutta, is absolutely enormous. It's a model that he has built. As a distinguished civil servant, he was in the Indian Administrative Service for over, I think, 3 decades. Well over 3 decades, and the architect of New Town, Kolkata, and chairman of HIDCO. He has actually transformed the township into a model smart city, talked about in every corner of the world. He has also played a pivotal part in the IT infrastructure of the state and has contributed in number of infrastructure projects and generally in the urban rejuvenation of the state. Over to you, Mr. Sen, for your views.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee, for that very nice and kind introduction. And I will make a few observations on my experiences as chairman of the New Town. It's not a municipality, but it's an urban local body, and I was the chairman for more than a decade, 14 years to be precise. And what we did not a zero energy kind of initiative, but a zero waste shop. We made a shop which is now called Zero Shop. Anybody entering New Town from Salt Lake Side can see shining and bright. And our objective was to collect wastes, recyclable waste over there. Batteries included, which was mentioned in the discussions earlier. To our dismay, we found very few batteries and e-wastes are coming in. Anything of value, for example, laptops and old mobiles, were all going off from their homes to the, buyers, randiwalas and things like that. And the AAA batteries that was being talked about in the dustbin. So there was this problem of behavioral change, and we had a tough time in educating awareness among the people to make it very, very interesting. In fact, though we are not dealing with this but on the overall sustainability matter, we were taking in old clothes and making it Fab India type branding and reselling it at only cost prices. But to come back to the energy scenario, a completely different initiative we took in the new town was in the matter of introduction of cycles and e-cycles. In whole of Calcutta, the police does not allow cycling. They say there may be accidents. And what we see in Europe is a lot of cycling lanes and lot of transportation, urban transportation in the last mile at least happening through cycles. And we built 39 kilometers of cycle track, all green cycle track in Newtown alone. We had Uber-like app cycles. Some of these were e-cycles. And it was so popular because you can't keep a cycle on a 14-story building. How do you manage it? How do you maintain it? And we even had cycle training for women. They had learned during their rural days. But Newtown is a new town, so everyone is coming here, so to refresh the skills. And when we did an analysis, we found that more cycles and e-cycles are being used by petty traders for bringing vegetables from place A to place B, for commercial practices. Otherwise, they would have to take it on rickshaws or what we call vanos, extremely polluting black smoke that is coming out. So this cycling is an initiative that we took very easily, and it was catching on, and it's still going on, but you have to put the safe procedures in there. Coming to the energy thing, I did ask the professor about floating solar. We did an experimentation with 10 kilowatt. Over Bagjora Canal, we had made 1 megawatt of power on a canal top because land is very precious in Newtown. And I can say this much, that the modern urban citizen is very motivated in using solar energy, rooftop solar energy, and environmentally conscious. The thing is, are our procedures very smooth? We will be having our CESC expert over here, and people from Calcutta continuously send messages to me even now that it's so difficult. I want to install my solar rooftop energy plant because I know in few years' time I will get it back, but the procedure is cumbrous, forms are not available, procedures are not given. I'll be delighted to have, it's a real, I'll give in my own blog that this is the answer given by Mr. Brajesh. Thank you very much. I will, from my own experience, I will only say one last thing and then I'll pass it on. That is, that we also did Newtown, as some of you may know, is a happy city, is a smart city, is a green city, certified green city. Dr. Agarwal will have to call me for a full session if you want to have learned it full, but there's no time. I'll be to the point since we're dealing with energy only. Newtown is also one of the solar cities of the country. Solar City was an initiative taken by the Government of India, Ministry of Non-Conventional Energy and Renewable Energy, that said that you should do certain procedures so that your energy requirement in the next 5 years is lessened by about 5%. We had a problem there. We had to argue with Government of India. The problem was, Newtown was a growing city. For a city like Kolkata, where the population is static, you have 5-star air conditioner machines instead of 1-star, so that your electricity consumption goes down even if you add additional ACs. So your electricity consumption would be less by 5%. But in Newtown, increasingly, at a rapid pace, people are coming in. It was a brownfield and a greenfield city, and it's filling up. So what we did, and Government of India agreed with our point of view, that first we have a business as usual growth. If we didn't do anything, our energy consumption would rise, our survey said, at 15% in 5 years' time. So if 15 becomes 10, they should consider that we have done our duty. We did it. We built about 2 megawatts of energy from our own government investments, and everybody is energized with the cycles, with the recycling, with planting trees, with our green verges, with our oxygen walk, and a plethora of intervention that we did. We have been able to achieve our solar city criteria.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sen. I think wonderful initiative. I have a question for you, but I'll save it after the speakers. I hope the chair agrees with that. We now move over to Mr. Brajesh Singh. He is the person who gives us power in the city. So he's the Managing Director, Generation of CSC Limited. Mr. Singh has a huge experience of over 37 years having worked in NTPC and Tata Power. So he brings a world of experience in power generation. Over to you, Mr. Singh, for your observations.
Good afternoon to all. It's a very enlightening session by Dr. Mathur, very in depth and insight regarding total requirement and need of the hours. What is required today, we need to think, because what we think today is going to give the result for tomorrow. The need of the hours, everyone is talking net zero. The topic is very relevant. Thanks for IISWBM for organizing such a wonderful discussion, debate and the lecture by Dr. Mathur. There is a fact. Fact is that global warming is increasing. And for all the initiatives which are taken worldwide, it's a good news that a number of countries are taking the place. It's increased huge in last year. But the reality is that the underpin or the action plan is not in place. Still, there are number of talks is going on, but outcome and result needs a lot of more holistic effort. It needs to address as a whole global economy, because GDP is increasing very fast. World economy is increasing. As Dr. Mathur has told, the 4 categories of the countries. The developed country has a more or less fixed their energy consumptions. The challenge with the developing country, and out of this developing country, India and China is the topmost in the GDP growth. And the 75% to 80% power is coming from the fossil fuel, which is fact. And the transition is not so easy. Though government has taken a very challenging target, adding 500 gigawatt by 2030 RE, parallelly 85 gigawatt by thermal, because demand is increasing very fast. The GDP is around 8%. The first time in the last 4 or 5 years, you see the rate of growth is increasing very fast. The electricity demand and the growth will be in the double digits, more than double digits. As India is going to be 2047 developed country, around $85 trillion economy. The growth is huge, and the one the GDP increase, the purchasing power of the individuals is going to be increased. The total market is going to be care economy. Care economy is looking after your need and requirements, luxuries. So yesterday luxury become the need today, and that will totally increase the electric power consumption, because your per capita electric power consumption is going to be multiplied. Currently we are hardly using 1200 to 1300. And average it should be more than 3500 average. I'm not comparing with the developed countries. As Dr. Mathur was telling, China has huge potentials and created a huge growth in the solar renewable. Why not we? That are the questions, and Dr. Mathur explained. But that required, because the effort which is presently is going on the conventional way is hardly gives some output up to 2035. After 2035, whatever the development required, that will be done only possible by the pilot projects and the prototype which are under developing. Then only something looks achievable by 2050 or 2070. Because the technology which we are presently having, that will give the outcome by 2035 or 2040. So a lot of R&D, lot of huge investment on R&D is required. The developed country has the huge investment, R&D is going on, continuously going on. But that needs to be taken care by Indian government, by we, by institutes. Industry should fund the institutes so that there should be a path which is happening in the developed countries. Because only the R&D and technological improvement is going to improve the performance, control the emissions, and achieve the net zero target. For net zero, suppose, let us take the three main area where the net zero is required to address. One is energy, another is mobility, and third is infrastructure. Energy sector, we are going very fast on renewable. No doubt, because I have last session also I quote one of the best book I ever seen is Elephant and Cheetah by Dr. Sanyal Memorial from IIM Ahmedabad. It's addressed the different scenario of the markets. In the losses side, I was discussing that elephant, cheetah, and the nominal losses which are creating the problem in cockroach. But in development side, suppose for the net zero we are discussing, I am using those metaphors, elephant, cheetah, and honeybee. Here the honeybee is the addition because we are talking about developments. These honeybee are sweetening. These sweetening are the improvements in efficiency, improvement in the performance. But that cannot replace the food. That only sweetening the food. We need to address by cheetah and elephants. Cheetah are the renewables, which are solar, which are wind, that is taking a jump. And that government is targeting, we are targeting. But the concern is the elephants. The elephants is the long-term strategy, how we are going to address, how those strategies are making the streamline. Whether it's policy, whether it's human behavior, whether the infrastructure. These are elephants, which are the required to develop all round. Then only it's possible to achieve the target. The policy which should encourage is easily available. As Mr. Sen was telling on the solar power, microgrids, why not we can use. The policies, the regulations should be easy, like telecom revolution. When the telecom was started, no one thought about the mobile was so popular. Everything available on your tips. That should be required in the power. Renewable power, solar or wind, power is achievable in such a way people can install the solar without any hesitation. Whatever the power required they can use and the rest they can share in the grid. Those concepts required. They are required a lot of improvement in the regulations and the policy so that individuals should encourage to install the solars. Then they require one is the most important, as Dr. Mathur also told, is behavior. The behavior is the most important thing on the use of energy consumption. Vehicles. Cities are flooded with the vehicles. Every individual they have been using single person one vehicle. In the family, 3-4 vehicles are there. Why not a pulling? That thought required. We have to come out from the both boundaries by status symbol. That happens. accommodated with the vehicle, the evening time, the peak hours time, you see the jam. But the developed country, they are using it. Mostly they are travel with the services, pulling metros, bicycle. They are using the cycling that not only gives to your health, but also to take care of the environment, pollutions, control. COVID has indicated the improvement in the emissions. The 1.5 year, there was a huge improvement. That indicates by the controlling the movement, by controlling the mobility and oil consumptions, that will going to improve. And that will be possible only by changing the, one is the improvement, the performance of efficiency, second is human behavior. That is going to great impact. After 2035 and 2040, the focus should be given more on R&D, as I was telling, that is on CCUS, carbon capturing. Next is hydrogen electrolyzer, advanced batteries. Those are the areas, those are technologies that need to mature. And then only it's possible to achieve the net zero by 2050 with the developed country and 2070 by the developing countries. The challenge, but the challenge is converting to opportunity. There's a huge scope on the young generations, young leaders, entrepreneurs like you. Because those are the areas where a lot of works, improvement, startups will help to change the total thought process, total economy. I belong from the thermal sector. Thermal sector, when the thought was started in India, from earlier fleet vintage machines to 500 megawatt first coal-fired power plant. I remember the first 500 megawatt coal-fired power plant in NTPC Singrauli. And that was a discussion whether 500 megawatt unit can run with this coal. Then there was, after 10 years, thought was started on supercritical, and the 660 megawatt unit, 70 number of fleet was awarded to BHL. Then there again question was there, why not 800? So there was a lot of discussion, Dr. Mathur is well knowing, on 660 or 800. And finally, first 800 megawatt put up by Tata Power, and CGPL Mudra is imported coal base. And after this 800 megawatt is very popular, all the units are coming with 800 megawatt only with the Indian coals. So need is not to think out of a box, but throw the box. You have to think boundaryless. Then only it's going to be possible to achieve the net zero by 2050 or 2070. So my request, my advice to all the youngers who are sitting here, the world is going very changed, dramatically is going to be changed. The technology, the advanced tools, the machine learning AI tools which are going to help and change the improvement, performance, efficiency, monitoring, everything is going to be changed. And there your initiative, your innovation is required. So the targets taken for net zero by 2070, it looks whether it's theoretic or reality, but I am sure if everyone take the ownership and contribute, it is going to happen. It is going to happen. The only thing required, each and everyone need to take the responsibility about their own role. Individuals, as a community, as a society, as a country, as an industry, everyone need to contribute. So thanks a lot for giving opportunity to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijayji. I think that was a wonderful, wonderful presentation, wonderful talk. The way you laid out the pathways, the analogy that you came up with and built on it, I think is very, very appropriate, and that's how it should be. And what you said makes eminent sense. And the passion with which you said, I think we will actually see it as a reality. Thank you very much. The next panelist, my friend Pramod Ji, Mr. Pramod Singh, the Chief Business Officer of India Power. He he plays a very important role in India Power in shaping policies and best practices and taking India Power to the next level. So over to you, Pramod ji, for your observations.
Thanks, Chair, Mr. Mukherjee. Thank you so much. I must first like to thank IISWBM to invite me here, and I received an invitation from Professor Dr. Agarwal, and I must be, I'm very quite enthused to actually look at the topic and all. But 1.5 hours into it, and I have had more of my share of benefit that I've heard Dr. Mathur so eloquently putting the whole net zero and energy transition agenda before, and so very patiently answering the question. So that's one thing which I'm greatly kind of enthused about. And it's always good to come back to academic institution and look at the enthusiasm and the future. And we're talking about net zero 2070, and this is the right audience in terms of the subject matter at hand, because it's always a work in progress. And it's like a relay where the baton gets passed on from one to the other. And as practitioners and as experienced professionals, we have to only kind of enrich our experience by learning and sharing with the young generation as also. So be that as it may, let me then resonate with what Dr. Mathur did kind of set the agenda. One is, as a practitioner, we should touch upon challenges and opportunities. And to start with, I'll just break this net zero and rhetoric or reality. First, net zero, how did it come? It gives me a sense of deja vu, in a sense that around 6, 7 years back, our company actually got into this discussion of understanding the nature of the beast in terms of what net zero means to utility like us. So just to give you a brief introduction, just in case people would not be knowing about India Power, we are a distribution company and we do supply power to end consumers. Around 85% of our customers are actually affiliated to hard to abate sectors where the decarbonization kind of vector is very, very prominent in terms of the need to actually look at things which basically give them a more amenable access to markets, especially in the European countries and other where you are subjected to so much of policy and regulatory bearings. And to that extent, it does help in terms of one small incremental move that we make on energy transition. Coming back to start of our strategic session, so one of the things which came up was that we did had a kind of a taxonomy, or in terms of our understanding of what net zero means, and in the context of what we do to our customers and what business we do. So to that extent, and that was a time when the solar power was 7 to 10 rupees. Dr. Mathur picked up an price line which was so very tempting to in China, the discovery of sub 10 per watt, but that was a time when to bring it into the energy mix of a distribution company was itself a tall order. But we could get to a few hypotheses which we needed to test. One clearly was we understood that renewable as a pack. So one is, so let's start with some of the things that we can do. One is energy transition. So net zero could have many pathways. One of the good things that we can do is in terms of embarking on any energy transition. The other was also on energy efficiency and getting the baseline done in terms of a GHG accounting. How much of greenhouse gas we do emit, and most of the discoms today would be in the starting point of actually measuring those, if not already. So those were some of the things. And in the energy transition at that point of time, less than 1% of our power was from renewable. And so basically, a couple of things that the hypothesis I was telling, we got to actually kind of put together. One is renewable, maybe given that we are located in the eastern region, renewable to start with, maybe in states and region which would have much higher kind of insulation level, a CO vector is called capacity utilization factor, and to that extent we may require transmission lines and large cross-country operators to actually bring the power from there to where we are, because 1% efficiency in terms of a CUF difference. So we did a 2 megawatt distributed solar in our license area also in terms of that part. But then we got into signing contracts with, say, a renewable plant in Rajasthan, for example. That was a 100 megawatt plant to start with, and to see the one. So one was that, and then you had enabling policy in which Dr. Mathur did allude to in terms of interstate transmission charges being waived off for renewable power. This was to kind of give that kind of do away with that operation where have and have-nots are equally treated when it comes to access to renewable energy and clean energy in the scale and the manner that we're talking about of solar parks and large solar products. So that was one. Two, also we realized that we have to, electricity and law of physics, you have to consume whenever you have to generate. But my learned colleague, Ms. Singh, on a thermal plant would still argue to say that, okay, as long as it's a minimum, a kind of a cutoff of 55, 60, I can kind of, do the load management to say that, okay, I'll operate at 90% at one point of time, and less depending upon your demand and others. So to that extent, what we did was, we did a wind solar hybrid, which basically our solar would have around 17-18% CUF. This was one which we could get at guaranteed 45%, and it was basically a mix of wind in some location and solar, and kind of made a hybrid power, renewable though, and having the IISWBM waiver on that part. So that was the first tranche of arrangement that we did. As we move up the value ladder, we did, and in the earlier session there was a question on RTC renewable. So here we have then the second arrangement where we have RTC renewable, and this time around the needle moved from 45 to 70% guaranteed CUF. So basically 70% of our time you have to ensure that the renewable is available to the one who buys that power. And to that extent, today from less than 1% we are today more than 65% in terms of our renewable power being supplied to the customer in the overall mix. We have a stated goal to reach at 80% in 1.5 years. So by end of 2026, we will be 85%. And to that extent, we are progressing, moving on that. And I see a lot of enthusiasm being shared by some of our customers on this part, and they are enablers in terms of getting green power separately so that they can kind of account it in their GHG greenhouse gas. So I see some bit of pull coming from the customer also in that. Now the challenges, and these are something, some of it we knew, but frankly, the amount of challenges that we had to surmount, something we are not even half done. We have a lot of challenges, and to that extent, there are different ways and means in terms of interventions. And from a business side, I would say that if you kind of put it into various buckets, it would be market-led challenges, it would be regulatory and policy-led, it would be technology-led. And I just will dwell in next 2 minutes on some of the challenges that we see, and happy to kind of engage separately also on this. But clearly one, that though we said that we have hybrid and RTC, but yet what happens in the context, and especially the industrial load that you serve, your load is something which, unlike, so renewable is a must-run plant. So whatever contract you sign on a long-term basis, you have to, whenever they generate, you have to take it. 70%, 80%, 90%, you can't say that my load is not there. And to that extent, a lot of balancing requirement is there between demand and supply. And to that extent, it put a lot of stress and strain the whole electrical network and apparatus. The way today the power sector is laid out, 95% of our power arrangement, and I'm giving you a statement from the fraternity of the power sector, 95% is tied into long term. So if I go out and say that I need a 100 megawatt capacity, will you give it? So the answer would be yes, but I would require a long-term 25 years contract. And to that extent, ABC. Now your demand would change, your situation balancing market would change. Today we have a very thin market. So in India today, just to give you a pointer in terms of what I'm talking, what I'm alluding to today, more than 90% of the market is long term. You have a short window of what is called power exchange. There are 3 power exchanges today in India, and to that extent, around 10% of your power or less than that is you can procure it through short term. And to that extent, largely you will always find in during the day surplus power and during night deficit power. And if demand supply in a true point of inflection has to be seen, you will see that at night you will have a power exchange discovering a price of 10 rupees per unit, because that's the maximum. Otherwise, given the need, it could climb up to 20 rupees per unit. And during daytime, you will have less than 2 rupees. And I'm saying that in things to come, in Europe and advanced power market is negative pricing. So if you consume, you get paid. You buy, you get paid for what you buy in terms of giving them the. We don't have a contract for difference kind of a market where you can have capacity contract going. So, and I don't want to sound esoteric here, but I'm just saying that from market side we see that what was earlier India was grappling with the situation of managing deficit, in a sense that to meet both the ends in terms of supply and demand. And now it is also about managing surpluses when it is, and to that extent it has its own challenges and issues when it comes to this part. Also in terms of and did mention about that in terms of batteries and storage. So to that extent, given that today the cost, and though he talked about moving from 5 to 4 in terms of hydrogen and this part, but today in terms of getting the right economics done on battery with renewable is something which is a big challenge. But I see that in terms of lithium ion and others, in terms of their price, this thing coming down, and to that extent, maybe what was solar 20 rupees some 10 years back, and now 2 rupees or 50 rupees is something that, so that would be one which will greatly help in terms of the situations, and to that extent, even on the policy and regulatory side, we see we have greatly benefited. I see this. We talked about IISWBM. So irrespective of where you generate renewable, you can get power to any side of the country in terms of using the transmission network, and the government is focused a lot on creating the robust transmission infrastructure and that is. But in terms of some of the issues related to renewable intermittencies, demand side management, looking at how do we deepen the load response, demand response side, and others. Today, in the right earnest, the policy and regulations are at works where consumer can participate alongside the distribution company in managing their load. So if you get paid, if you can switch off your AC at one point of time when the load is very high, your this thing is high in terms of demand, and you can participate in cheaper power when the power is demand is low, and you can participate. Demand response is a market which is flourishing, and that gets, if it has a vector to deeply get intersected with the type of challenges that we are talking about. So democratization of how we deal with energy is something, and both ways. So the traditionally our network has actually worked one way in terms of from a generator to supplier, but that's something that is important. And in terms of, and I just close on the opportunity side. As a company, we share a lot of enthusiasm and optimism in terms of net zero. We believe that we have been able to get there in terms of some of the challenges that was at hand. We are learning all the way. We have SOPs getting redefined and reconfigured in terms of how a control room or 24/7 has to work, how a network engineer has to kind of respond to that and others. But at the same time, what is important is that the journey is there. We have started measuring our greenhouse gas emission inventory and accounting. So we have engaged with one of the big four to help us on doing that. Brajesh ji talked about the way the whole power sector has evolved, both in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. The modern energy kind of system dates back to more than 130 years now. And to that extent, earlier it was something where you had small hydro or DG set serving one or two such places and others, to moving to a large bit of big-head plants and moving into sizes of from 120 to 250 to 500 to 660 to 800, and all this is to look at efficiency, which also is a very important ingredient in how we stack up our thermal fleet in terms of efficiency, because each has a moves the heat rate a bit in terms of the movements and all. But at the same time, I must also point out, and that's something that we are looking at, trying to basically learn more about, is on the whole hydrogen piece, which again is strongly aligned with the renewable bit. And if I look at it in India, I see it with some level of despair that when it comes to lithium ion, for example, the storage part of it, or for that matter, the solar kind of wafer and silica, we kind of got into very late. Till the time you had capacity built elsewhere, and our neighbor China was something which was unbeatable in others. But hydrogen is one area which we believe holds a lot of promise, and to that extent, if we do it right as a country, it does help in terms of our energy security and energy access, in terms of our net zero journey. Today, in terms of what it holds in terms of the potential, so we have around 5 million tons per annum of domestic consumption itself in terms of hydrogen being used in fertilizer and some of the refineries and others. So large captive market itself begging for displacement of cleaner power if the economics works out that way. Also in terms of the renewable piece, ultimately more than 60% would be, other than the fertilizer and others, would be the renewable input. And today we are a leader in this in terms of G20 countries and all. So to that extent, this part of the story, and we are talking about the future potential of, while we are talking about electrification of automobiles, but one level above it in terms of how hydrogen-based automobile and all. So I suppose this is something where, from a net importer of oil and gas, we could be a net exporter of, because those important strategic advantage lies ahead of with us, and to that each of our sector participants will benefit out of it. Thanks. I know, Mr. Mukherjee. Thank you so much. Sorry.
No. That was very insightful. That was very insightful. And the point you made about democratizing use of energy, demand response, that's also something very interesting. And the challenges with technology, business, and policy, how the three intersect, how the challenges emerge, and how to take the challenges hands-on and turn them into opportunities and bring them forward. Over to the chair. Would you like to ask some questions? I think time-wise, 5-10 minutes. Yes, I think it would be better if we ask some questions, take some questions from the floor. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for this nice panel discussions. I'd like to ask Mr. Brajesh Singh regarding one maybe important question. Like, do you have any plan in setting up a power plant using green hydrogen as a fuel?
Green hydrogen fuel, as you know, the mission are providing also some draft stage policy is there. We are in the discussion. We are working on it. But as you said, pilot projects are good. But as a major, you can say, a contributor for the electricity generation, it will take some. It will take some time. Like ammonia firing.
Yeah.
Ammonia firing was an initiative to control the emissions. It is in pilot stage. Coal gasification. Coal gasification, a lot of work is going on. Still, it will take some time. So these are the areas. That's why I have told whatever the technology available, and we are pushing for the net zero by 2035. But after 2035, these are the technology where they are in the pilot stage or in the prototype. They need to be converted into mature so that they can lead after 2035 onwards with the net zero.
Maybe some R&D work could have been taken with the research institution, like maybe I'm from Jadavpur University, so maybe that's the main plan. But
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I think, I manage one of the country's energy transition, and I'm really responsible for the entire country's energy transition for one. In these discussions, we have actually taken out the hydrogen for power generation. It is absurd, very strong word. You are putting the renewable energy and you are putting in the electrolyzer with even the 70% efficiency, which is highest achieved. On an average 50% efficiency, you lose 100 to 50, and then you have to invest in a gas turbine or engine, which is 1.2 billion per gigawatt, and you get a 35% to 60% efficiency, whatever. Even if you put 60 into 70 over there, you get a 40% efficiency, you lose 60. And with the investment of the electrolyzer plus 1.2, so roughly 2 billion per gigawatt you have to invest, and you get that amount. Plus, I'm forgetting. On the other hand, you put in the storage, you get 90% round trip efficiency, you use it. Just forget about power, green hydrogen in power, that doesn't work.
In fact, we from the academic world look for the opportunity of publishing papers. We cannot actually go to the industry finally in the practical use. But actually, from that perspective, if I just take this issue, net zero is something dream. We must dream, otherwise we cannot do something good also. The aspect is there in the academic world. I know there are lots of publications in the area because this is the target is fixed, path is not fixed. So multiple options may be possible, and that including not only the power sector. The issue may be included into the, a lot of carbon emissions happen from the other aspects which has to be also taken care of. This integrated model of making how much initiative in which particular aspect or the sector, that can be a really good academic exercise to do it. And from that perspective, 2017, I strongly believe, at least I personally will not leave and the speakers will not expect it. So this is an expectation that we will follow a better path for the future.
Well said, Shweta, well said.
For the future.
I think you have concluded the session very well.
Yes. And one of the specific question to Mr. Sheikh. So one of the aspect actually, I know that you are a bureaucrat and other designing for the direct public interface. So there the people look at whether the waste is collected from the shops or not. But what happens to those waste finally, that actually makes the sense of the circular economy. So, to that directions. And another issue that is coming to my mind is, that's why the sustainable goal are 70. Filling up one of the goals may affect the other goal, and that creates a lot of problem in some of the cases. Bicycle routes, undoubtedly it was required. It is a very good example. But unless the proper law and order is maintained, bicycle may not be a feasible option for local transport.
I think that was a comment, so I don't have to say anything. But yes, I agree with you, the legal framework must be there. That's true.
So adding to this, as I have told, the thought which is required for addressing net zero is one of the infrastructure. The smart city need to be designed in such a way so they're going to take required that is out of the city, like Netherlands. You enter only by putting your vehicle outside and travel by bicycle only. So keeping in that, because they are the developed countries and we learn from them. In thermal sector also we learn a lot from USA and European country by two-shift operation. That two-shift operation was never thought in India, but now it's going to happen. So both the developing country, what they have faced challenges, how they handle those challenges, these are the learning for us.
Thank you very much. I suppose now we draw the session to a close. And my thanks, sincere thanks to IISWBM for this wonderful opportunity, and I'm sure my fellow panelists and the esteemed chair would agree, has given us a great opportunity to be here and interact with all of you and the dear students. Thank you very much. So that brings us to the close of the session. Thank you.
Yes, yes,
So good evening everyone. So this is So on good evening. It is my proud privilege to honor you and deliver a vote of thanks on behalf of IISWBM, and we extend our deepest gratitude to everyone who made this event a resounding success. So already a vote of thanks has been proposed, so I would cut short and I would say that just the extra part of that we have with us in the panel discussion our esteemed speaker of the D.K. Sanyal Memorial Lecture, His Excellency Dr. Ajay Mathur. So we again thank him for chairing this panel discussion, and that is very nicely collaborated by Sri Dev Mukherjee. So our heartiest gratitude to him as well. Now the three panelists, they have made a very nice presentation and opinion. So just to summarize that, Sri Devashish Sen has highlighted the importance of sustainable urban planning and the role of educative awareness. He mentioned as personal experience and implementation that he has made in the smart solar city, that is of course our proud. We are proud of it, is our pride, and e-cycle and many other examples. Sri Brajesh Singh, the Managing Director CSC, also has shed some light on the practical challenges of global warming and opportunities in decarbonizing the power generation system, particularly in balancing the demand and supply, such as the case of developing countries in particular, with examples and emphasizing on solar to carbon capture and storage and to behavior in particular. Sri Pramod Singh of India Power, he has underscored the pivotal role of private sector innovations, accelerating the innovations and green energy transition with reference to solar wind hybrid system. Again, from their own prototype practice, they have demonstrated, and so which may lead way for the net zero achievement. So as a whole, as the past, that was the common good which was mentioned by Dr. Mathur, that it is the need of the hour to find the ways and means for common good, inclusive growth. So the hymns that was just played, that also falls for the same in tune with that. That is the may everybody that survey, that is the hymns, that is the may everybody be happy, that is survey santu sukhina bhava, may everybody be free from illness, may everybody see what is auspicious, and may no one suffer. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So with this message, so all the staff, we, Professor Pialison also needs a special mention for taking a lot of pain. And the students of energy management, they are in the field, they have done a lot of work. And all the students, MBA, and all the students, volunteers of the institute, and staff, faculty members, it is a joint initiative, and we hope that we shall take more such initiatives. Thank you very much, and we wish that all the dignitaries, we shall continue this dialogue, and we shall take this forward. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now I request for a group photo to our Director Acting IISWBM, President, Board of Governance, Treasurer BOT, faculty members present here, and all the volunteers. And after that we have arranged a high tea session at Student Activity Center.
এনার্জিতে খাবার দাবার এনার্জিতে মেলা এনার্জি এনভায়রনমেন্টের মেলা উৎসব ওই টপিকটা আলোচনা